Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us. So I'd like to welcome you to the latest in our series of LA Found webinars. I hope everyone can hear me. My name is David Cochin, and I'm a Human Services Administrator with the LA County Aging and Disabilities Department. So June is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. And this webinar focuses on the issues impacting individuals with Alzheimer's and related dementias, as well as their caregivers. There will be a particular emphasis on risk reduction, early detection, and advanced care planning. Our guest speaker, Dr. Tony Kuo, will discuss this topic in detail, and then we'll provide a presentation on our department's LA Found program. So you'll have the opportunity to ask questions following each of these presentations. So at this time, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Laura Trejo, the director of our Aging and Disabilities Department, to make some introductory remarks. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. Good morning. I'm Laura Trejo, director of the Los Angeles County Aging and Disabilities Department. And as you heard, today's webinar is really for us to raise awareness about Alzheimer's and brain health. It's Alzheimer's and Brain Health Month in Los Angeles County. And this webinar in particular is brought to you by our very own LA Found program that was established in 2018 to assist families and caregivers of those impacted by Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, developmental disabilities, and other cognitive impairments. I would like to thank the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors for their support of our department's LA Found program. I would also take a moment and a very special thank you to our esteemed speaker today, Dr. Tony Kuo, Director of the Division of Chronic Disease and Injury Prevention at the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. Dr. Kuo is a leading expert in brain health and Alzheimer's, and we are honored to have him share his valuable insights with us. Healthy Brain LA initiative was introduced in 2020 under the Division of Chronic Disease and Injury Prevention at the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. The initiative consists of three core elements: Healthy Brain Initiative, the Los Angeles County Bold Initiative, and also Healthy Brain Initiative Roadmap Strategies, which is very exciting because it's setting the tone for the work that we're going to be doing in the coming years. All of this work is aligned to the National Healthy Brain Initiative Roadmap. The Healthy Brain LA aims to foster a culture where individuals and communities prioritize brain's health by tackling the challenges posed by Alzheimer's disease and related dementias within our county. In a similar vein, our department, Aging and Disabilities, is really committed to empowering both older adults living with disabilities to live well, to age well, and to be as productive and have gratifying lives as they thrive in an inclusive society. We endeavor to ensure the safety and well-being of older persons, dependent adults, by providing supportive services that include our vibrant community centers that we hope are strengthening the bonds of our local communities. This webinar plays an important role in advancing our mission and strengthening our commitment. With that in mind, I hope that today's webinar provides you with valuable information that you can benefit from, and hopefully that you will also share with close family and friends within your community to continue raising public awareness. So welcome to today's webinar, and we hope that the information you receive will be helpful in your own lives in improving your health overall. Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
We are actually very honored and thrilled to have with us Dr. Tony Kuo. He directs the Division of Chronic Disease and Injury Prevention in the County of Los Angeles, Department of Public Health. He is also Health Sciences Clinical Professor of Family Medicine in the David Geffen School of Medicine at the University of California, Los Angeles. He is an adjunct professor of epidemiology in the UCLA Fielding School of Public Health and program leader for the Population Health Program at the UCLA Clinical and Translational Science Institute. In 2016, he became a fellow of the American Academy of Family Physicians. Dr. Kuo is an experienced public sector executive and physician scientist who has worked extensively in population health, including on programs and interventions that affected special populations such as older adults, and food insecure families. These and other work have included projects in tobacco control, cardiovascular health, clinical and prevention services, including the National Diabetes Prevention Program and the Diabetes Self Management Education and Support Program, nutrition and physical activity promotion, injury prevention, Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, and social conditions that affect health. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Kuo. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David and Dr. Trejo, for the introduction and the context. Very excited to be here, and I think today what I would like to do is share with everybody sort of what the county of LA and just the county in general and our partners have been doing the last 3 years in terms of trying to define and determine the strategic direction we're trying to go towards with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia. And in particular, if everybody can even walk away from today's presentation just being aware that we are trying to work on risk reduction and early detection and advanced care planning for not only those with the condition, but also trying to get infrastructure that would support the caregivers and the family members that actually care for them. That to me would be a very wonderful outcome. Next slide. So just to provide some data and context about Alzheimer's disease in the United States, there's probably presently about 6.7 million adults. And if you look at it, if you break it by age group, 1 in 9 adults basically who are age 65 and older probably has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. 1 in 3 adults age 85, so the ratio goes up, has Alzheimer's. And depending on who you look at, I know if you look at Alzheimer's Association statistics and some of the other data, by 2060, we're expected to probably reach somewhere around 13.8 million people who are probably going to be affected by Alzheimer's disease. This is in the United States. Next slide. So if you look at the local context, I don't, we are very much parallel or mirror the national statistics. Locally, we probably will have the same type of ratio, but probably more interestingly, if you break it up by race and ethnicity groups, and there are also other groups you could break it up, what you could see is that if you were to project it out, if you look at the data from 2019 and then project it out to 2040, on average for people who are 65 plus, the risk and the prevalence of Alzheimer's disease and related dementia, it's gonna dramatically increase. And the purpose of this slide, the takeaway from this one, is to just think about the fact that this is not a specific group disease or condition. This is a whole host of conditions in which it basically affects every single group. What this slide actually shows you, especially within the local context, right here in LA County. Next slide. If you look at mortality, the number of deaths that are due to Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, the death rate and the number of deaths are going up. And what's striking is that even if you look at 2022, and this was sort of tail end of COVID-19, Alzheimer's disease mortality is actually second only to cardiovascular disease. And some might even argue that if you think about risk reduction, cardiovascular disease and brain health are intimately connected. And so those numbers are probably even more significant from that context. Next slide. And again, mortality in terms of deaths due to Alzheimer's disease and related dementia, you break it down by different subgroups, and you could see that there's variations. And again, every group, it will be touched by this disease and condition, and all of them will increase as the years go on. Next slide. And then wanted to sort of present or at least point out that the population or the groups that are affected by Alzheimer's disease and dementia, it's not just the individual who has the condition. It's basically caregivers. If you look at the California Health Interview Survey, based on that survey, it is estimated that about 322,880 people are actually caregivers of adults who may have dementia or cognitive impairment. And this is quite a high number. The other thing to consider too is not everybody identify themselves as a caregiver, and so within that context, this number is probably underreported, and that's something also to consider. And so, in some ways, when you think about strategic planning for Alzheimer's disease and related dementia, you have to think about infrastructure not only for the individuals that are affected by the disease. You're going to have to think about what type of support system and things that we will have to put in place to also help informal caregivers and families that actually contribute to helping those individuals out. Next slide. So, what have we been doing in the last 3 years under our Healthy Brain Initiative, under our LA Bold? We do have some support from both the state of California as well as the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And what we've been able to do in the last 3 years is to use those support and resources from these state and federal agencies to help us pull together a 5 year strategic planning process. And what we're hoping to do, and what we had hoped to do with this effort, is to basically come up with a roadmap for governments, healthcare, aging services, employers, and several community organizations to think about what is it, or even some focus area we could focus on that we could begin to work together to build out some infrastructure and support for Alzheimer's disease and dementia, specifically in LA County. And if you want to scan the QR code, it takes you to a 5 year strategic plan that just recently put together. And that will provide you with a lot of details about what has been proposed and what a lot of the different stakeholders that and individuals and affected groups that we brought together thinks are some of the steps that need to be taken. Next slide. So our strategic planning process in looking at the strategic directions we wanted to go was done very collaboratively, and this is with a lot of support from Aging and Disabilities Department and the leadership they have provided, as well as a lot of organizations that provided their expertise in helping us sort all these different topics and needs and issues out. And the Healthy Brain LA Coalition is the coalition we have built, and in many ways, all of our strategic activities are kind of built around how this coalition wish to proceed. So in a way, it's very nice to have this coalition that kind of helps inform all of our activities and strategies moving forward. And this is just a list of all who participated during the strategic planning process in the last few years. Next slide. So these three focus areas that coalition came up with in terms of the strategic planning process. The first one is hypertension prevention and control, and this falls under that umbrella of risk reduction. What the coalition and the subgroup that worked on it in this area thought of was that what is like one of the key things that you could do that can really reduce the risk of Alzheimer's disease and dementia. And one of it is blood pressure control. As many who work in this field knows, that Alzheimer's disease and other dementia often, and especially Alzheimer's disease, often does not happen just as one condition. Oftentimes it's a mixed set of conditions. So it's not uncommon for somebody with Alzheimer's disease that subsequently they also develop some type of vascular dementia. And the vascular dementia and also the Alzheimer's disease, one of the key risk factors is actually high blood pressure. And so one of the things that the group felt it was good to work on in terms of risk reduction is what if you could put in play not only in terms of awareness and management of hypertension, but also anything dealing with systems, healthcare system or community resources that really can be brought together and coordinated to help people manage their blood pressure. That alone could actually not help out brain health, not only quite a bit, but also help out all the other chronic conditions where blood pressure is an issue, right? Namely, heart disease and of course diabetes. Next slide. The second focus area that the coalition really thought was important to address is early detection. In many ways, if you think about both prevention, you think about management, and you think about future planning for both a person who has dementia and also for their families and caregiver, part of it is early detection. If you can detect the condition at an earlier stage, all of those things are easier to put in play. So if you want to further risk reduction and to slow progression to Alzheimer's disease, you need to detect it early. If you want to plan for the future, you probably need to detect the condition earlier than earlier the better. And so in this focus area, the coalition thought that early detection, we probably need to make not only the healthcare providers aware that early detection is possible and should be done, but probably also the community members as well as community organizations where if they suspect somebody may have cognitive decline, they should take action and maybe help those individuals see their physicians or doctors so they can get detected early. Next slide. And finally, the third focus area the coalition thought would be good to focus on is advanced care planning. And so again, the planning, if you can detect the condition early, you can look at advanced care planning. It's too often that individuals get diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease or another form of dementia, and by that time it's kind of very late in the game, and so they're no longer in that capacity to make good choices around what they want for their health care and even for what they want in terms of their own personal affairs. Next slide. So looking ahead, the entire coalition, we see a lot of challenges ahead in terms of trying to build out the right infrastructure, the right system strategies, and even the right community engagement to work on Alzheimer's disease and related dementia. Some of it really includes trying to figure out how the funding and resources will have to be aligned in order for this to work. Some of it is looking at multiple sector partnerships so that everybody can have a voice in how this is done. And then, of course, data infrastructure. One of the things that we have been trying to do is that we know that data around Alzheimer's disease and dementia, and in particular around caregiving, the data are not collected as often as some of the chronic conditions. And we kind of need data because if we don't have data, we're kind of flying blind. And so that's one area we're also looking to try to improve. But that being said, the challenge is we look at it as also in many ways opportunities to really make advancement and to really take some actions. And at least for the coalition and for the initial phase of the strategic planning and strategic directions we're hoping to take, we're looking for quick win projects. I think we could prototype and innovate and pave the way for different strategies that are currently being discussed. Also, there may be alternative sources of support that through policy that we have not examined yet, and I think those are areas we can really look into. And then, of course, public health and university partners can really probably work together to help improve the data infrastructure and data quality. And of course, public awareness, getting the word out, that will be really important, not only for those agencies that will have to work more and more with individuals with Alzheimer's disease and dementia, but also for families and community members who themselves may have family members who are affected by these conditions. Next slide. And I just want to show you that in terms of awareness and education and training, a lot of these efforts are already ongoing and in a position to really expand. So, for example, Alzheimer's LA, this group has done a lot of education and training designed to raise awareness about Alzheimer's disease. And this is just to show you that all the variety of classes that are already out there, that this actually touch across the entire county, including all 5 supervisory districts. And this is an example of where the infrastructure has already started to kind of build up and where we could actually contribute and help expand. Next slide. Finally, if people want to learn more about Healthy Brain LA website, please feel free to. There's a QR code and website. There's a number of resources. There's also a number of reports and documents that might be useful. So feel free to check it out. Next slide. And if you're interested, I think beginning this past year, late December, early January, the coalition, as part of the coalition work in the Department of Public Health, we do have this monthly digest newsletter that the group is putting out with different information and opportunities. So feel free to sign up for that as well if you would like to. Next slide. And again, thank you. And it's an honor to be asked and a great opportunity to come and present on this work and just to basically raise awareness that the county government, the community organization, and communities themselves are working together and have come together and is looking forward to continue working together to work on issues related to Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. So I'll end there. I'm happy to take any questions, and I'll hand this back to you, David.
Thank you, Dr. Kuo. We really appreciate it. We do want to leave a little bit of time at least for individuals to ask their questions. To begin with, how do we clinically determine and define hypertension? Dr. Kuo, thank you.
So hypertension previously was defined as, and there's multiple stages, but the threshold cutoff is one systolic blood pressure, the upper number 140, and the diastolic blood pressure lower number uh, 90. That's the sort of cutoff, 140 over 90, and something above that was defined as hypertension. There's different stages. Although in recent years, there's been newer guidelines where uh, that threshold has been lower a little bit, and this is based on Sprint and other trials, and that's more at 130 over 80. In any case, I think it's not so much just the threshold. It's just I think anybody with who wants to maintain good brain health or other risk factor for cardiovascular disease, the main takeaway from that is it's not the absolute number threshold as much as if you're hovering around those threshold, you should try to go see your doctor. It's more about continuous care.
Thank you, Dr. Kuo. So we have a few more questions in our Q&A box. What kind of screening tools do you recommend for the community, or is it more to advocate for annual screening with a primary care provider?
That's a great question. The short answer is there are actually a number of tools for screening, but they're mostly designed for healthcare professionals. I think the main takeaway is that screening is possible, early detection is possible, and that I think at least in the community, it's more like having enough awareness that if you do have a community member who might have cognitive issues, that they should be checked. Community organization or even family members should recognize that and maybe try to help the individual go get assessed for potential Alzheimer's disease, dementia, or just simply some cognitive issues.
Thank you, Dr. Kuo. Another question is, are there studies showing about what foods to avoid or those foods to eat more of for brain health?
That's a really good question. I think in general, there hasn't been like specific diets that has been recommended for brain health. Although I will say that because if you think about it from a risk reduction perspective, all the diets or the recommendations for healthy eating applies, right? Because all the diet that actually people talk about is great for cardiovascular health, is great for hypertension, great for helping with diabetes. All of those ultimately is relevant to maintaining good brain health. And so you may read in the literature things like Mediterranean diet, try to reduce sugar intake in terms of hypertension control, being a little bit more aware of high sodium food, lower your sodium or salt. That's all very relevant to this.
Thank you so much. So we are actually at the point where we need to move forward. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get to all the questions. Something a lot of people are asking, are the slides going to be available? And the answer is yes, we are going to make them available. We will follow up and provide them to anybody who is interested, and we can email them if you like. And so with that, we're going to move forward to the next part of our agenda, and that is the description of our LA Found program. I'm going to go ahead and give you an explanation of this innovative program that we started over 6 years ago in the department. This is once again, the LA County Aging and Disabilities Department. Please go ahead with the next slide. So we'd like to begin with a little bit of background, just to give you an idea of the need for this program. So we're looking at different cognitive impairments, including Alzheimer's. This slide basically shows you the statistics and just the volume of individuals who have Alzheimer's just in the United States alone. And it really gives you an idea of not just the mental cost, but also the financial cost. One of the important statistics, as you can see at the bottom there, while only 4 in 10 Americans talk to their doctor right away, 7 in 10 would want to know early if they have Alzheimer's disease, if it meant that they could get treatment. Next slide, please. And then we have autism spectrum disorder. So about 1 in 22, or 4.6% of 4-year-old children were identified with autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, in 2020. An estimated 49% of children with autism will engage in wandering behavior. And so that is what led to this program, LA Found. It's the wandering away, or also known as eloping, from home or from anywhere else. Next slide, please. And this gives you an idea of just how much Alzheimer's is increasing just within LA County alone. In 2015, it was over 166,000 individuals with Alzheimer's. By 2030, it is projected to be over 275,000. Next slide, please. So what are the signs to look for that give you a sense of individuals living with Alzheimer's or other dementias who are at risk of wandering? Returning from a regular walk or drive later than usual, forgetting how to get to familiar places, and then talking about fulfilling former obligations, such as going to work. And it could be a job that somebody retired from many years ago. Trying or wanting to go home, even if they are already at home. It could be a previous residence. Becoming restless, pacing, or making repetitive movements. Asking whereabouts of past friends and family, including those who've been deceased for a long time. Appearing lost in a new or charged environment, and becoming nervous or anxious in crowded areas. Next slide, please. And so this gives you an idea of the statistics behind the individuals, the children who tend to wander away. More than a third of children with autism who wander or elope are never or rarely able to communicate their name, address, or phone number. According to a study by the NAA, accidental drowning accounts for 71% of lethal outcomes, followed by traffic injuries at 18%. So what you see is a lot of children who wander into natural water formations or into perhaps neighbors' swimming pools. And then increased risks are associated with autism severity. Next slide, please. And this gives you an idea of the cost for autism in older adults. As I mentioned earlier, it's not just the physical and mental costs, it's also the financial costs. Older adults with autism must deal with additional expenses associated with specialized care. Health costs. Older adults with autism are more likely to face both physical and mental health challenges than people over 65 without autism or dementia. And then, of course, you're going to be facing social isolation. The depression associated with isolation and loneliness can have a major impact on mortality, morbidity, and the quality of life. And so that brings us to our program, LA Found. This is a multi-year initiative. It started with a 3-year pilot, and the idea is to promote and facilitate necessary action to protect and locate and identify people who are likely to go missing. We're now well into our 6th year, and the focus is on enhanced coordination among different agencies and departments within LA County, technology solutions, prevention, education, and training, and of course, social engagement, raising public awareness. Next slide, please. So there are now two components: the Project Lifesaver program, in which an individual, a participant in the program who's eligible, wears a small radio transmitter on their wrist that emits an individualized frequency signal. And caregivers are responsible for reporting a missing person by calling 911. And they may also call our department as well. The responding law enforcement jurisdiction can request mutual aid assistance. But then we've also moved more recently into more advanced technology. We are now using a device by a company called TheoraCare. The program includes the use of more advanced GPS technology through the use of tracking devices manufactured by TheoraCare and using clairvoyant networks. So when someone participating in the program goes missing and law enforcement is notified, the LA County Sheriff's Department mental evaluation team can be requested to assist in the search and rescue of the individual. So we have a very good partnership with law enforcement. What are the eligibility criteria? People living with Alzheimer's, dementia, or autism, or other cognitive impairments. They're prone to wandering away, and they live in LA County. And what the participants receive is a tracking device 1-year kit, which is free. It's valued at $325, but it's free through this program. And then they also receive replacement batteries, wristbands, spare parts, and any other accessories. Continued support through our LA Found team and recommendations to keep loved ones safe, and other resources. So applying to the program is very easy. It can be done online at the website listed there, which is lafound.ad.lacounty.gov. And then in addition, for an application to be mailed to you, you can email the LA Found team at lafound@ad.lacounty.gov, or you can call the LA Found hotline at area code 833-569-7651. The team reviews the application, and the agent or caregiver will be notified about next steps. And then the eligible individuals will receive a kit in the mail. And then after the first year, spare parts are provided for active program participants. So the caregiver, who is really the agent, known as the agent, has very important responsibilities. They could be a surrogate decision maker, such as a family member. And what they do is they actually test the device daily using the battery tester. They change the battery every 60 days. Then they must comply with the informational and reporting guidelines. This also includes just letting the team know when the device simply won't be needed anymore for the particular individual that it was ordered for. And it is understood that it's a tracking tool to assist in the locating of a participant. And then, of course, contacting 911 if the loved one goes missing. Next slide, please. So this map gives you an idea of just how widespread the program is throughout LA County. Next slide, please. So the family can contact 211 after they call 911, and they need to be sure to get the authorized agent's caregiver's name, address, phone number, participant's name, and frequency number. That's 211. And they can send LA Found an email, and we will reach out to the family to go over the details. And then LA Found can provide an update to 211 for reporting purposes. And again, we have our important partnership with LA County Sheriff's Department. They provide the crisis assessment through their mental evaluation team, also known as MET, and targeted case management services to diffuse potentially violent situations and prepare appropriate documentation to assist in the placement of persons with mental illness to acute inpatient psychiatric facilities. They also perform in-service training for de-escalation and crisis negotiations during major incidents. Next slide, please. And so this gives you an idea of the breakdown of individuals who are participants in the program and the different cognitive impairments that they have. So Alzheimer's counts for a large degree, that's 29%, autism as well as dementia and other cognitive impairments. Next slide, please. And so we've had a very successful program since its launch over 6 years ago. We have actually issued nearly 1,500 devices since we implemented. There have been 28 successful rescues. Most of what the program is about is prevention, but then there's also intervention, and that's where the rescues come in. As I said earlier, raising public awareness is a key component to making this program successful. And so we have done a lot of outreach and we've participated in a lot of community events. And the program has won several awards for its innovations. Next slide, please. So included in our outreach, we do webinars just like this one. We do device distributions, and we just have outreach events where we talk about the program and explain how it works to people, and people can apply right there. And then we provide 211 a list of calendar or of any upcoming events to be disseminated for any calls related to the event. And any outreach requests and questions can be referred to the website listed below. The referral process is once again very easy. There's an online form that can be filled out, or the information can be provided to any member of our LA Found team, and they can actually put it down and determine the eligibility from there. Next slide, please. And so this is how you can obtain additional information about the program. We have our website, we have our email address, and you can also apply online. That's our office location. We're in the Koreatown area. And we really, want to make it clear that we work with every applicant when they are unable to complete an application through the online portal. A member will always be available to send an application via email or US mail if that's the best option. Applicants can also stop by with an appointment at the office for any issues regarding applications or device setup or any issues that they encounter along the way. Thank you. And this is our LA Found team. They are relentless. They work very hard to address all of the concerns and issues that people have, answer any questions they have, and of course, determine eligibility and issue the actual devices for those who are eligible. That basically gives you an idea of the LA Found program. It's been very successful and it's very innovative. And we really encourage anyone who knows somebody, could be a loved one or could be a friend who has a loved one that tends to wander due to a cognitive impairment, and to reach out to us. Hopefully, we can actually get you set up with one of these devices for your loved one or for anyone who's interested. And so at this time, we will open it up to questions about the program. Okay, so we have a question here. Should we ask for the bracelet even if they've never shown any sign of wandering? Well, that's a great question. That's actually one of the eligibility criteria, that they do show signs of wandering, that it's important that these devices actually be given out to individuals who have shown signs of wandering, who have actually wandered away, and who are known to have a cognitive impairment, and of course live in LA County. Is it easy to remove? We definitely desperately need it, but can foresee my parent removing it and or never wanting to put it on? That's an excellent question. What we have found is that the program is not always a good fit for people. There are individuals who they find it restrictive. And so for those individuals where it really does seem to be a problem, they just don't want it. It's not recommended for them. However, there are other alternatives. For example, if they don't like it on their wrist, maybe they won't mind it as much around their ankle. That's another possibility. Or it could even be pinned to their clothes. So that's another option as well. Another question is for people who live in Orange County or Riverside. Do they qualify for the program? And unfortunately, the answer to that is no. It is strictly limited to individuals who live within Los Angeles County. Are there reasons for the increase in Alzheimer's? And is there a link between autism and Alzheimer's? Oh, another great question. And I'm wondering if Dr. Kuo is still with us and if he might be able to answer that because I think that he's more of a subject matter expert in that area than I am.
So the answer to the first question is probably the greatest risk factor is aging. So I think it's just the population is aging. So that's probably a it's not the only contributor, but it's certainly the single biggest contributor to the higher number of Alzheimer's uh, that are now being diagnosed. The other possibility is that, with greater awareness, you also have earlier detection, right? In terms of the second one, I am not aware of the definitive data that suggests autism and Alzheimer's are like connected per se, and that may be something we we could look into, but I am not aware of quality studies that suggest that.
Thank you, Dr. Kuo. And actually, while I have you here, there's another question that perhaps you can address. If a family member feels anxious all the time and who notices that they have memory issues, what are some of the tests that one recommends to see what they may be experiencing?
Well, there's probably not one single test. This is where I think family members can be supportive of the individual, probably by maybe going in with them to go see their primary care doctor to look at other possibilities. You could well be a cognitive issue, but you may not. There are other causes.
Well, thank you so much for that, Dr. Kuo. We are actually getting pretty close to the end time of our program, but we did also want to put a poll up, and Kwa has already done that. Thank you so much for that, Kwa. The questions are: do you feel more informed about autism and wandering? And it looks like we have nearly 100%. The numbers are still going up. At this point, it's 92% yes and 8% no. Now it's 93 and 7. And then another question is: do you know how these resources work and can help your family? Also 97% and 3% no. Do you understand more about LA Found? Again, 97% yes and 3% no. And would you like these resources today? We have 74% yes and 26% no. So these answers are very encouraging. We're glad to hear that people are aware and continuing to be curious about brain awareness and about the LA Found program. And so, with that, I think we're going to go ahead and bring it to a close. I would once again really like to thank everyone for joining us. We hope that you've really gotten a good education out of this webinar. We will continue to have them throughout the year. It's something that we're really trying to increase, and we're going to let you know about them as they come up. So, once again, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye bye.